Facebook, on Rumble. It is good to see you all. Thank you for joining us today on The Liz Wheeler Show. I'm your host, Liz Wheeler, and I want to start the show today by saying I apologize. I apologize for the delay in going live today. We usually go live at 1 p.m. Eastern, and what time is it? It's 3:32. We're over 2.5 hours behind. And the reason for the delay is because 90 seconds before we were set to go live at 1 p.m., 90 seconds, I am speaking literally here. It was actually 1 minute and a half before we were set to go live. The internet went down completely. The power went out, internet went down, everything went dark. Out of the blue, there were no storms happening. There was nothing, no rain, no snow, nothing. The internet went down. Could have been a coincidence. Could have been just one of those things. The timing just paired exactly with the start of the show, or it could not have been. I don't know. I mean, I'll leave it to the conspiracy theorists in the live chat on YouTube to speculate about whether it was a coincidence or whether it was related to the topic of today's show, which we will get into momentarily. Thank you guys, by the way, for all of you who've been subscribing on Spotify. I really appreciate that. Subscriptions are going up, up, up over there, and I really appreciate it. If you haven't already, get out your phone, go to the Spotify app, search The Liz Wheeler Show, hit subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. It helps other people find the show. I really appreciate everybody who's been doing that over there and on YouTube as well. We've gotten a ton of new subscribers on YouTube, so hello to everybody who is new. If you are new here and you haven't yet jumped into the live chat, go ahead and say hi. I do watch the live chat throughout the course of our live stream and keep an eye on it. We're going to probably do a Q&A here at the end of the show today, especially for those of you who are new. So drop your questions and your comments in the live chat as we go along here today, and we'll get to as many of them as we can towards the back of the show. Okay, so this is the topic of the show today. I got a very strange text message this morning, and this wasn't the first time that I received just such a text message, a very similar text message. And I'd like to read this text message to you live on air to talk about its origin. This is what the text message said. It said, Florida DMV final notice. Enforcement begins October 17th. Our records, the text message reads, indicate that as of today, you still have an outstanding traffic ticket. Pursuant to Florida Administrative Code 16C 16.003, if you fail to pay within 24 hours, we will take the following actions. Number 1, report to the DMV violation database. 2, suspend your vehicle registration effective October 17th. 3, suspend your driving privileges for 30 days. 4, proceed to the toll booth and pay a 35% service fee. And 5, you may be prosecuted and your credit score will be affected. Pay now. And they include a URL that says easypass.payci.cc/pay. And they say, please pay immediately before enforcement begins to avoid a license suspension or other legal consequences. If the link is unavailable, unclickable, reply Y and reopen this message to click the link or copy it into your browser. You can see it on the screen here. This is what it looks like. Now, you may be thinking, Liz, I've also gotten these text messages. This is not something unique to you, and you would be correct, of course. Many people, thousands, millions of people across the country have received similar text messages to this one. It's obviously a scam. I did not click the link. I did not give my credit card. I did not copy and paste the URL into the browser because I am not stupid. I know a scam when I see a scam. But you know what? Over the course of the past couple of months, as I have received these text messages with greater and greater frequency, it seems almost on a daily basis that I receive this text message. I haven't been in Florida. I don't have a traffic ticket. That's certainly not the enforcement mechanism. If you do get a traffic ticket somewhere and you don't pay it, they don't. I mean, it seemed like these scammers are pulling out all the weapons from their arsenal. They're saying, oh, we're even going to impact your credit score if you don't do something about it, or you might go to jail, whichever the law enforcement decides they want to do. As I've seen these text messages with increasing frequency, it did not surprise me to learn the origin of this text message. It was not your typical Turkish prince origin here. According to an expose in the Wall Street Journal today, this text message was sent by Chinese criminal cartels. And those of us across the country who have received these text messages are the attempted victims of these Chinese communists. This is from the Wall Street Journal. It says Chinese criminals made more than $1 billion from those annoying texts. Messages seeking payment for unpaid tolls prompt victims to hand over credit card information, which gangs use to buy gift cards and luxury goods. This article was written by Robert McMillan. He said the U.S. is awash with scam text messages. Officials say it's become $1 billion, highly sophisticated business benefiting criminals in China. Your highway toll payment is now past due, one text warns. You have U.S. Postal Service fees to pay, another threatens. You owe the New York City Department of Finance for unpaid traffic violations. The texts, according to the Wall Street Journal, are always ploys to get unsuspecting victims to fork over their credit card details. The gangs behind the scams take advantage of this information to buy iPhones, gift cards, clothing, and cosmetics. Criminal organizations operating out of China, which investigators blame for the toll and postage messages, have used them to make more than $1 billion. That's billion with a B over the past 3 years, according to the Department of Homeland Security. Behind the con, investigators say, is a black market connecting foreign criminal networks to server farms that blast scam texts to victims. The scammers use phishing websites to collect credit card information. They then find gig workers in the U.S. who will max out the stolen cards for a small fee. Making the fraud possible, an ingenious trick allowing criminals to install stolen card numbers in Google and Apple wallets in Asia, then share the cards with the people in the U.S. making purchases half a world away. This deluge of phishing texts is getting worse. Americans reported an all-time high of 330,000 toll scam messages in a single day last month, says Proofpoint, a company that filters mobile spam messages. The average monthly volume of toll scam messages is about 3.5 times what it was in January of 2024. Wow. I think we can all speak to this personally. I know for me, at least, I'm receiving just dozens and dozens of these things, way more than I used to. The Wall Street Journal says criminal gangs are able to flood people with text messages using so-called SIM farms, rooms jammed with boxes of networking devices. Like, remember that the SIM farm that was discovered in New York ahead of President Trump going to the United Nations? And then right here on Blaze, we broke the story that it was actually the Chinese that were behind this SIM farm. It's just this kind of SIM farm. The servers are stuffed with the little white cards, the Wall Street Journal writes, that mobile customers put in their new phones to begin making calls or sending texts. One person in a room with a SIM farm can send out the number of text messages that 1,000 phone numbers could send out, said Adam Parks, an assistant special agent in charge at Homeland Security Investigations, an investigative arm of DHS. Criminal gangs overseas typically operate the farms remotely, but hire gig workers in the U.S. to set them up. The gangs recruit the workers via the WeChat messaging app, Parks said. Workers needing help have instruction manuals and live technical support. Leave it to the Chinese communists to have live technical support for their crime gangs. At least 200 SIM boxes are operating in at least 38 farms across the U.S. in cities such as Houston, Los Angeles, Phoenix, and Miami, said Ben Kuhn, chief intelligence officer with the cybersecurity company Unit 221B, which has investigated the messaging fraud. Kuhn has discovered SIM farms in shared office spaces, crack houses, and an auto repair shop. So this is a plot by the Chinese government. Now, I'm sure, as I've seen in the live chat, that you all have received these text messages, just like I have. This is not something unique to me. This is also not something that's happened in isolation. It wasn't a one-time text message that was sent to me. This is something that's been ramping up. It's been increasing in frequency over the course of the past year and a half, but particularly over the course of the past 2 or 3 months. So with that being said, hold that thought, because this Chinese plot that's being unleashed on us is connected to another Chinese plot that's happening right in front of our very eyes. We'll get to that in 1 second. Today's episode is sponsored by All Family Pharmacy. Let's be honest, most big chain pharmacies don't care about your medical freedom. They just want you to get in line, take their shot, move on. That's how they profit from big pharma vaccines. The experience is awful. I mean, all I want when I need a medication is to be able to get it. That's it. It's that simple. That's why I am proud to partner with All Family Pharmacy, because that's how they work. That's why they exist. All Family Pharmacy does things differently than the big med pharmacies. They believe that your health decisions should stay between you and your doctor, not dictated by some government agency or an insurance company. Check this out. This is how they work. You pull up their website, allfamilypharmacy.com/Liz. You search your medication. And you're going to find it because they have over 200 medication options. You place your order. After you place your order, a doctor reviews your order, writes you a prescription, and it's shipped straight to your door. That's it. That's all there is to it. The gatekeeping that has overtaken our healthcare system is outrageous. No, it shouldn't be Dr. Fauci or Albert Bourla or the American Medical Association or your insurance company who decides what medication works for you and whether or not you should be able to have access to it. You should decide. That's what medical freedom means, and that's why All Family Pharmacy exists, because they respect your medical freedom. Check them out, allfamilypharmacy.com/Liz. Use code Liz10 for 10% off. That's allfamilypharmacy.com/Liz, promo code Liz10. Even if you don't need medication at this moment, go to allfamilypharmacy.com/Liz. Find the medication that works for you so you know you have a resource when that time comes and you need it. Allfamilypharmacy.com/Liz, promo code Liz10 for 10% off. Okay, so holding the thought of the Chinese SIM card text message fraud, this plot that's unleashed $1 billion in damages on us, U.S. citizens, over the course of the past 3 years, hold that thought for a minute, because I am going to walk you through a somewhat wild journey connecting what the Chinese are trying to do here in the United States. Not just what they're trying to do, what they are doing, what they have unleashed here in the United States. So follow along. 2 days ago, 3 days ago, when President Trump visited Israel after he brokered the historic peace agreement between Israel and Hamas, bringing an end, at least for now, to that war. We don't know how long Hamas will honor that agreement because they are religiously motivated to try to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. That notwithstanding, a historic peace agreement, the peacemaker president, President Trump, negotiated between Israel and Hamas. The DSA. Do you know what the DSA is? The Democrat Socialists of America. This is a communist, socialist, Marxist political party here in the United States that boasts members like AOC and Zohran Mamdani. The far radical leftists, usually younger politicians, are proudly members of the DSA, the Democrat Socialists of America, and they are as radical as it comes. This is the statement that they released in the wake of this ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. I'm going to read portions of it to you because it's very important to note what was said. They titled their statement, "Until Palestinian Liberation." This is dated October 13th of 2025. They said earlier this week, the Palestinian resistance announced that a ceasefire agreement has been reached and would entail the end of this intensified stage of the genocide. This will not end Israel's assault on the Palestinian people or the theft and occupation of Palestinian lands. A conditional ceasefire agreement does not wash the hands of the ruling class that touted their legal obligation to intervene and instead continued to fuel an armed genocide while stoking regional war. DSA acknowledges and welcomes the relief that may be afforded to Palestinians under the agreement in humanitarian assistance and cessation of Israeli military operations. Every life saved is precious. Parents, children, entire communities. DSA sends the strongest solidarity to our comrades in Palestine and throughout the diaspora who have lost so much and may now take a brief moment to rest and grieve. However, DSA harbors no illusions that Israel will honor any negotiated agreement that preserves Palestinian life or self-determination. Past ceasefires only slowed the carnage, and Israel continued military action with impunity. The future of Gaza continues to be negotiated, not self-determined. The occupied West Bank and Jerusalem, eroding under illegal settler expansion, continues to struggle under violent Israeli apartheid and occupation. Across the region, Israel terrorizes the people of Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, Qatar, and Iran while wielding the implicit threat of nuclear engagement to violently impose its fascist, expansionist aspirations. The long sought-after stability in the region is dependent on Israel and its allies finally being held accountable for their decades-long list of war crimes and imperial aggression. Until then, there can be no long-lasting peace, the DSA writes. They continue by saying DSA stands for the full freedoms and self-determination of the Palestinian people, including the end of Israel's colonization and occupation of all Arab lands, equality, and the right of all refugees to return to their homes and properties. We affirm, in alignment with al-Thawabit, the inviolable rights of Palestinians and international law upholding Palestinians' rights to resist occupation in order to secure justice and dignity. The Israeli occupation continues and will continue to violate each and every one of these internationally recognized and protected provisions. Our role, the DSA writes, is to end U.S. complicity in Israel's genocide and apartheid at every level, in our communities, our government, our workplaces, with every economic and political tool at our disposal. That's why DSA is organizing labor for an arms embargo and pushing to join the movement bursting forth in the Mediterranean and Europe to disrupt the supply chain of endless death. To that end, we commit to further strengthening the boycott, divestment, and sanctions picket line by organizing the masses into campaigns like Stop Fueling Genocide, Mask Off Maersk, and No Appetite for Apartheid, while working in coalition to effectively isolate Israel economically, culturally, and academically. We will break the gears of the U.S. imperial war machine that enables Israel and halt the flow of arms and oil to ensure our comrades may resist their oppression, cast off the occupation, and with dignity freely self-determine their future. We proudly join together with our comrades in solidarity until justice is rendered for all Palestinians. The struggle for liberation continues. They end by saying solidarity forever. It's quite a statement. It's quite a statement. What does that mean? It means, of course, what Benny Johnson pointed out on the show yesterday. If the people on the left who have been decrying a so-called genocide in Gaza for the past umpteen years, if they actually meant what they said, they would be the first ones celebrating in the streets. They would be throwing parades for President Trump as the most effective peacemaker president in modern American history. They would be crying with joy and gratitude. And yet, they're not. They're nowhere to be seen. They don't care. They're frauds. They're absolutely frauds. They have used the Palestinian people, who often, by the way, are complicit with Hamas. I would say most of them are complicit with Hamas, and a few are the victims of Hamas. Regardless, they have used the Palestinian people as pawns to push their own political ideology on the world. They're frauds. They're absolutely frauds. Of course, these people, the DSA and others like them, still want to escalate campaigns against Israel and any U.S. entity complicit with Israel. They never wanted peace. They always want war, because the ideology that they hold is not just a peaceful, we want peace, we want an end to genocide. No, their ideology is an inherently violent ideology. And I'm not talking about just individual groups of people, not just the DSA itself. They're not just violent as individual men and women. The ideology that they have built their movement on is a violent ideology. But here's the thing. We've cracked their code. We know their sinister strategy now. Finally, after all these years, we've exposed their organizational structure through which they mobilize their minority, but vocal minority, into taking political action or committing violence against us. And if you take any example of far leftism, this violent ideology, and you plug it in to this code that we cracked, how the left operates, it fits every time. Their ideology, leftist ideology, wants the destruction of the United States. And it also wants the destruction of Israel because of the hatred of Western civilization that's held by communists, by jihadists. Radical Islamists like Hamas are not going to stop until their caliphate rules the world. Short of that, they're going to continue to kill and rape all what they call infidels who stand in their way. Communists, godless communists. The Catholic Church calls communism an ideology that comes from Satan. Communists also want the destruction of Western civilization, because what is freedom but a means to a virtuous life, a means to worship your creator? And so communists and jihadists have joined forces on this against the United States and Israel, because the United States and Israel are the beacons of Western civilization. You can criticize the Israeli government for their war strategy. That's fine. I have no problem with that. But what I'm saying still remains true, that in a Middle East dominated by jihadists, Israel remains the beacon of Western civilization. So again, hold that thought and follow me on to the next point, because as you will see, suddenly it all ties together. For example, let's take a look at the most prominent communist politician in the United States, an open communist, a member of the Democrat Socialists of America. Democrat Socialists of America, of course, issued the response that I just read to you, essentially calling for escalation against Israel in the wake of President Trump's peace deal between Israel and Hamas, because, of course, these socialists, these communists don't actually want peace. They never did. They want to go to war because their ideology is inherently violent. The most prominent, loudest, most popular, probably most powerful communist in the United States is Zohran Mamdani. Zohran Mamdani is the individual who I would call him the front runner to win the New York City mayoral race in now just a matter of days. He's an open socialist, an open communist, an open Marxist, an open Muslim. And he's about to win. He's about to be the mayor of New York City. How does that happen? How does it happen that 25 years ago, New York City was decimated by terror attacks committed by radical Islamists, jihadists who wanted to impose their caliphate on us. And now we're about to face an openly Marxist, Muslim, leftist mayor in New York City. Can you imagine explaining that to the victims of the September 11th, 2001 terror attacks? I can't. I can't imagine that. Zohran Mamdani is an open socialist. He's an open Marxist, an open communist, and he's probably the most powerful communist, at least politician in elected office in the United States, a member of the DSA. In fact, there was a picture, and we're going to show this on the screen. This was posted, ironically, by the Secretary of State of Maine, Shenna Bellows. We talked about her at length on the show yesterday with investigative reporter Steve Robinson, because Shenna Bellows is, of course, an extremely shady individual who is fighting against election integrity in the state of Maine. And don't you wonder why? If you missed that segment, highly recommend you go back and listen to Steve Robinson's thorough breakdown of this woman. But months ago, Shenna Bellows posted on her Blue Sky account this photo of Zohran Mamdani, and you can see this on the screen. What does he have on the back of his laptop in that photo? He has a bumper sticker on the back of his laptop that says Shenna Bellows. What else does it say? Well, his arm is covering part of it, but if you look really closely at that other sticker, what does it say? Well, I think you can tell what it says. That's right. It says, "End Israel apart." You can't quite see the wraparound of the rest of the sticker, but I think we can safely assume it says, "End Israeli apartheid." Oh, end Israeli apartheid. That's what he says. The most prominent communist in our country, a member of the DSA that says they're going to continue to escalate against Israel despite the fact that President Trump ended the war between Israel and Hamas. This is the most prominent communist in the country. Of course, Shenna Bellows posted this on her Blue Sky account because he also endorsed her, which says a lot, by the way. Might not want to vote for Shenna Bellows for governor of Maine if you live in that state, just based on her association with Zohran Mamdani. Again, put a pin in that. All these building blocks are suddenly going to become a train. The DSA, the Democrat Socialists of America, who boast Zohran Mamdani as a member, who posted that they don't actually want peace, they want war in the Middle East and here in the United States, because they never actually cared about a so-called Palestinian genocide. They just use that as an excuse to commit violence. The DSA also boasts as a member in their New York City chapter a woman who is of particular interest today. It's a campaign surrogate for Zohran Mamdani, a woman who has raised money for him and has tried to coalesce a group Jewish voters in his support, although that really wouldn't make any sense. This woman's name is Alicia Singham Goodwin. Alicia Singham Goodwin. Does anyone recognize that name or a portion of that name? I'll say it again. Alicia Singham Goodwin. That's right. Alicia Singham Goodwin is a Singham. She is the niece of Neville Roy Singham. She's the daughter of Roy Singham's sister. Roy Singham's sister, who personally donated to Zohran Mamdani, and now her daughter works as a technically unofficial campaign surrogate that raises money and works on voter turnout for Zohran Mamdani. All part of the Democrat Socialists of America. Again, we move on to the next train car, but they'll all tie together. Join me across the pond now at the Chinese Academy of Marxism. The Chinese Academy of Marxism, whose name is self-descriptive. I don't need to tell you what the Chinese Academy of Marxism is. The title of the institution is self-explanatory. The Chinese Academy of Marxism recently did a write-up about Zohran Mamdani. Now, why would the Chinese Academy of Marxism care about Zohran Mamdani? Well, as you can plainly see in this graphic, this headline, the Chinese Academy of Marxism was praising Zohran Mamdani as a bright spot of resistance in the United States. A bright spot of resistance. So what does this mean? This means that these things that we see, the text messages, the DSA, the fraudulent leftists who pretended to care about a Palestinian genocide yet refused to celebrate in the wake of President Trump making peace between Israel and Hamas, the violence that we see unleashed in the United States, this is not a decentralized network of malcontents or losers or, what I would call closet commies. This is a highly coordinated, organized plot against the United States. And we've talked very often recently, and in a handful of episodes over the course of the past couple of weeks, about the strategy that the left uses. They use shell groups, these individual groups with kind of innocuous names, to coordinate the violence that they commit in the United States. The funding for those groups comes indirectly but directly from Roy Singham and his ilk. But we haven't yet covered the origin of this plot. Roy Singham might be the money behind the plot, but he's not the one who invented it. It's not Roy Singham's brainchild. He is simply the patsy or the puppet for this project. The origin of the civil unrest that's being sown in the United States, the violence that's unleashed against us, the origin is the Chinese communists. So circle back with me. Now think about that text message I showed you at the beginning of the show. You probably have similar text messages on your own phone. You know, you neglected to pay a toll, and now you better watch out, or your credit score is going to get hacked, and you're going to be thrown in jail, and your car is going to be taken away unless you click this really shady-looking URL and give us your credit card number, and then we're going to steal from you. The Chinese communists are stealing from us to the tune of $1 billion just by that particular text message scam alone over the course of the past 3 years. $1 billion. And this, I am sad to say, is just another example of a crime committed against us by the crafty Chinese communists. They are not merely adversarial trading partners in a globalist economy. The Chinese communists actively, desperately want to depose the United States and destroy us. And they're doing so by disrupting our society socially and culturally. They are attempting to destroy our economy. They are sowing civil unrest. For goodness sake, they created a virus that spiraled us into tyranny. They are actively promoting violence in our streets. They view us as their enemy. And they are crafty. They use surrogates like Roy Singham, puppets like their Chinese crime cartels to fund it and to carry it out. All of this, these are not isolated incidents, random idiots, morons, or criminals that are acting alone. It's a coordinated effort that's hiding an origin with the Chinese communists. And here's the thing. We can stop the funding that's behind this because of the word that I used before, because the Chinese communists use surrogates or puppets to do the funding. This wasn't the brainchild of Roy Singham. He's ideologically aligned with it. He's obviously happy to serve in this position, but it's the Chinese Communist Party that's at the back of it. And the good news is we can stop this funding. The Treasury Secretary of the United States, Secretary Bessent, was on the Charlie Kirk show yesterday. Charlie's producers, who are now guest hosting the show after Charlie's murder, were at the White House yesterday for President Trump's presentation of the Medal of Freedom to Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica Kirk. And they hosted his show from the White House, and they interviewed the Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, on the radical leftist transgender groups, these violent militias in the United States, whose mission, openly stated, is the violent overthrow of the United States through the targeting of Christians and conservatives. They interviewed Treasury Secretary Bessent on exactly how the Trump administration is going to go about dismantling these terror organizations. And this is what Treasury Secretary said. Take a look.
I want to play a clip here that's really important because you're working on a very important piece of this, and I wish we had more time for this. So let's just get right into it. 1:36.
Let me tell you something I'd not share with anybody, but the last message that Charlie Kirk gave to me before he joined his creator in heaven was he said that we have to dismantle and take on the radical left organizations in this country that are fomenting violence. That was the last message that he sent me before that assassin stole him from all of us.
So that is a powerful clip. Stephen Miller said something similar when JD hosted the show on the Monday after he was assassinated. And Treasury, I come to find out, coming to D.C., that Treasury has taken an active role in an aspect of this dismantling of the financial networks that are supporting some of these radical left violent groups. Share with what you can. I know it's an ongoing process.
So it's an ongoing process, and I will tell you that after 9/11, Treasury became the driving force behind tracking down the networks of terrorist organizations, how they were financed, how could this have happened on U.S. soil with these international terrorist organizations? Where did the money come from? Who were the ultimate funders? And that was on the international side. And Andrew, I will tell you that Charlie's death is like a domestic 9/11, that we are going to find. It has alerted us to what Charlie knew, that these organizations are working within our borders. And look, we believe people have a right to free speech. They have a right to organize. They have a right to protest, but they have to do it peacefully. They cannot embrace violence, and we have seen it. We've seen it since the terrible day 2 years ago, the anti-Semitism and the bias that came out after October 7th, 2023. And many of these organizations have been financed by nonprofits, and it's going to stop. And we are going to, as they always say, follow the money. When you see these groups where all the signs match, they have hundreds of the same umbrellas that they're using. After they cause the mayhem, they have the same lasers that they're using to blind our police force. How are they constructed? Because this takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of organization, and we are going to do that. We have started to compile lists, put together networks, and there's a long record here. And we don't know how much of the support's coming in from overseas. We don't know how much being supported by U.S. nonprofits, C3s that give money to C4s. But this is mission critical for us now. Just as after 9/11 and Osama bin Laden, the ultimate culprit, was captured, we are operationalizing this here at Treasury, and we are going to track down who is responsible for this. So Charlie's death has set this off, and we are determined not only to honor him, but to keep our country safe and to ensure freedom of speech on both sides. That we can't, as conservatives, we can't be afraid to go out and speak. I know people are canceling speeches. They're having to bring down the size of the rallies. President Trump was millimeters away from death, and he was not deterred, and we're not going to be deterred.
God bless you for that. I wish I had more.
Amen. Amen. Gary Sealer in the live chat says, from Giuliani to Mamdani in a quarter of a century, how far we've fallen. It's almost mind-boggling to make that comparison. DJ H in the live chat says the CCP has been trying to destroy this country for many years now. They have. They've been doing it so long that people are almost desensitized to the idea that it's the Chinese communists behind many of these attacks in our country. That the civil unrest is not grassroots, is not something that organically happened, even on university campuses. It's not something that these radical leftist militants came up with on their own. It's not just something that they needed funding for and they reached out to Roy Singham in China about. The origin of all this is the Chinese Communist Party, because their number one goal is to unseat the United States as the world dominant superpower. And I know it's sometimes not quite as exciting. It's not quite as mysterious as if you can name one person and unmask an individual and say, this is the supervillain behind what's going on. This is the person that's been pulling all the strings. It's not as exciting to say, look, listen, it's the Chinese Communist Party. It's their government that's plotting against ours, because we don't have the names of the individual strategists the way that we have George Soros and Roy Singham and the Tides Foundation and the Party for Socialism and Liberation and the leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement, Patrice Coolers and Alicia Garza and Opal Tometi. We don't have the names in the Chinese Communist Party that allows us to make the presentation the same way. But make no mistake, these individuals who are sowing unrest here, yes, they are ideologically committed to it. They're not just after the money and the power, but they are the surrogates that mask the origin, and the origin of this is the Chinese Communist Party. And so I would echo what Andrew Colvett said to Treasury Secretary Bessent when he said, God bless you for making a list and for going after these radical leftist organizations and looking for where the money is ultimately coming from, the source of the problem. It's almost like the Maha movement. Like, we're done with medications that mask our symptoms. We're done suffering from a chronic health crisis and just looking for band-aids to get along to the next thing in our day. We are now at the point in our country where we are demanding the reason why. We are demanding exploration of the root cause. Why are we suffering from a chronic health disease crisis? Why are we all suffering from autoimmune diseases and cancer and autism? Where is it coming from? What is the ultimate source? Not just, here are some therapies that can help, or here's a medication that can slightly reduce one symptom while causing you other side effects. What is the root cause? How do we prevent this? That's the attitude that I see, or that I hear in the words from Secretary Bessent. And I'm so grateful and so encouraged to hear this. But this is my message to Secretary Bessent and to the entire Trump administration. Your words are correct. Your words, they're wonderful to hear. And I'm so happy and encouraged and energized to hear it. But please, don't stop with just words. Do it. Do it. For the love of God and country, do it. If you have the authority as Treasury Secretary, for example, to freeze the assets of an individual like Roy Singham, who is obviously acting at the behest of the Chinese Communist Party to literally fund violence in our streets, freeze his assets. Think about the impact that his $20 million that he gave to the People's Forum has had on our country. This is not pocket change. This is not grassroots donation from members of the organization. This is the lifeblood that's aimed at drawing your blood. Do it. Please do it. Prove to us that for once in our lifetime, politicians aren't just going to say words that they think we want to hear, that they're actually going to do it. Please and thank you for your attention to this matter. You know, I mentioned to Steve Robinson on the show something that I did this weekend that was extremely out of character, and I want to tell you about that in just a second. But first, I want to thank the sponsor of this portion of today's episode, Crowd Health. This time of year, we're reaching a very spooky time of year, and it's not just because of Halloween coming up. Insurance companies are hoping you'll sleepwalk into another cycle of overpriced premiums, network headaches, and endless fine print. It's open enrollment season, where they're betting you won't question anything. But let me tell you, you should. You should, because there's finally a better way. My husband and I, it's almost the 1-year anniversary when my husband and I quit our health insurance. We said, listen, this is not just a broken system. It is corrupt, and we refuse to be a part of it. Crowd Health is not insurance. I like to call it assurance. It's a community of people like me and my husband and family. That's what we have now, who've had enough of the old system and are taking healthcare into their own hands. For under $100 a month, you get access to prescription discounts, lab testing tools, a network of quality doctors, and a team that negotiates medical bills on your behalf. And if something major happens, well, you pay the first $500, because this happens to all of us from time to time. And then the crowd steps in to help you with the rest, so you are not bankrupted. It's what healthcare used to feel like before it got hijacked by bureaucracy and bad policy, by Democrats. Crowd Health members have already saved over $40 million simply by refusing to overpay. You can too. This open enrollment, take your power back. Join Crowd Health to get started today for $99 for your first 3 months. How about $99? Compare that to what you're paying for your monthly health insurance premium right now. It'll blow your mind. Use code Liz at joincrowdhealth.com to secure that price, $99 for your first 3 months. That's joincrowdhealth.com, promo code Liz. Crowd Health is not insurance. Like I said, I like to call it assurance. Opt out, take your power back. This is how we defeat the corruption. Joincrowdhealth.com, promo code Liz. Okay, I said to Steve Robinson when he was on the show yesterday, I said, listen, I did something this weekend that was somewhat out of character for me. Not principally out of character, but just practically. I very rarely watch other people's content. When people ask me, what podcasts do you watch? What radio shows do you listen to? What television shows do you like? I often don't have an answer for them, because I don't watch or listen. I don't consume a lot of other people's content, because I'm very focused on you. I'm very focused on this show, our endeavor, our partnership. I'm doing research. I'm strategizing. I'm writing. I'm crafting. I'm thinking. I'm working all the time on this show. And so I rarely have time, like very rarely have time to consume other people's content. But this weekend I watched 2 different things. Again, I don't usually do this. Maybe the reason was I had 2 extremely long flights that I was on, like 5.5, 6-hour flights. And I watched 2 things. And again, I know it's very unusual for me to even recommend that you watch something else aside from this show, but I got to tell you, these 2 things I highly recommend you watch. The first one was Steve Robinson's appearance on the Sean Ryan show. You got to see that. It's absolutely wild. I'm not even going to give you a teaser. You can watch yesterday's episode because I talked to Steve about some of the things he covered on the Sean Ryan show, but go watch that if you haven't already. The second thing that I watched was Allie Beth Stuckey, who's one of my coworkers here at Blaze. She appeared on Jubilee's Surrounded show. You probably familiar with the premise of the show. It's one person with a position. Allie Beth Stuckey's position was, I am a Christian conservative. And she sits in the middle of a circle and is surrounded by 20 liberal Christians. And one by one, they come up and sit across the table from her and they challenge her beliefs and her claims. She debates them one-on-one, but over and over and over, because all 20 of them, I believe it's 20, get a chance to debate her. And as I said, I rarely watch people's content. If I do, it's like the little clips that I see on X. I watched the entire 1 hour and 40-minute episode of Allie Beth Stuckey on Jubilee. And I got to tell you, I am so proud of this woman. She was poised. She was calm. She was gracious and loving. She spoke the truth. And oh my, was she... someone on X said it was like a surgical strike against Christians who claim that it's compatible with, or that being a leftist is compatible with Christianity. This is one of the best things that I have watched in a long time, and I highly recommend that you watch it. Highly recommend it. 2 of my favorite clips I want to show you. This is the first, where she's talking about abortion with an individual who claims to be a Christian but is pro-abortion. Take a listen.
My concern about the way that you present the abortion issue,
Okay.
is you have claimed in the past that the liberal pro-choice position
Mm-hmm.
is that we don't give the whole truth about the abortion issue. And
That's
you liken
probably
it
true.
as violent. You've described it
Yes.
here as killing
Abortion is
and
violent.
painful.
Yes, for the child, absolutely.
My concern is that you are doing the same thing by not telling women the truth, that when the majority of abortions happen, which is in the first 6 weeks of pregnancy, that fetus has not developed pain receptors. That doesn't happen till maybe at the earliest 10 weeks, Allie.
So are you
Most
saying that
experts
murder
say
that
22 to 24 weeks.
is killing only
there's
wrong
no-
if someone can feel pain?
It's wrong for you to characterize it as violent
It is
and
violent.
painful when it's not.
It is violent. Of course it's
But it's-
violent. Even when you take
it's
the
not.
abortion pill, you are starving that human being. If you want to call him or her a zygote or a fetus, that's all fine. Those are all stages of development that all of us went through, that all children go through. It is still the killing of a human being. And when you take the abortion pill, the 2-part abortion pill, you are starving that human being of the nutrients that he or she needs to survive.
That they
and
can't
that is
feel.
violent.
That they
It
can't
doesn't-
feel.
Are you saying there are a lot of people who are murdered who can't
But you-
feel it?
but-
Are you saying that that murder is justified because they can't feel it?
No, we're talking about abortion.
We're talking
Allie,
about
we're not talking
more-
about something else. We're talking about abortion.
But I'm
and
trying
it's
to
not
understand your
painful.
logic. You are
Yeah.
saying that abortion is okay because babies don't feel it. So I'm asking you, is killing another innocent person when they don't feel it, is
Abortion-
that justified?
Abortion is health care for women who need it, who have unwanted
In what other
pregnancies.
case is
who-
killing an
12-year-old
innocent
girls who have
person?
been raped, who have experienced incest, Allie.
That's less than
They-
1% of all abortions. Can we agree?
So most of the
If
abortions
I said
happen
to
within
you-
the first 6
if-
weeks.
if I
and
said
it's
to
not
you,
painful
okay,
and violent.
If I said to you, okay, fine, we will only allow, which this is not my position, but if I said we will only allow abortion in those 1% of cases in which it's rape or incest, would you agree with me to ban the rest of abortions?
The denial, the
99%?
denial of abortion health care to women is 100% harmful to the woman who
And what-
absolutely
and
needs
abortion
it.
is 100%
It's
harmful to the
mental health
child.
care, physical health care.
Killing an
Allie,
innocent person is not health care. Can you tell me
Here's a-
another
here-
situation
here's
in
the-
which killing a person intentionally is health care?
Here's the problem with the whole pro-life movement. You talk a lot about look at the evil origins of these movements. Look at your movement, Allie. The religious right movement started with the Southern strategy, and it didn't start with abortion. They
Okay,
figured out
well,
abortion was a great issue
this is
to
a
raise a
red
lot of money.
herring.
No, no, no,
This
no.
is a
This
red
is your
herring.
issue. You just brought
No,
this issue.
my argument is that abortion is a grave moral evil. You say it's not because babies in the womb don't feel pain until a certain point in gestation. I'm
Also-
asking
so
you
let me
to
put-
apply that
yeah.
logic to people outside of the womb.
Let's
Is
put it
murder
this way.
okay when the victim doesn't feel pain? And why or why not?
Here's the issue.
You
Was
don't
Jesus
want
a
to
Jew?
apply your logic to people outside of the womb. Tell me why.
You don't want to listen to the logic that
I listen
experts
to your
say that-
logic.
that the-
You
that the
won't
issue
support
is
your
not pain.
logic. You won't support it.
Jesus was a Jew, Allie, and Jews believed that life begins at first breath, not at conception. So this whole idea that life begins at conception, it's not biblical.
Okay,
It's not Jesus.
I would love to answer that before you get voted out because I think that's really important. I've heard that a lot, that life begins at first breath. First, we don't actually see that throughout Scripture. That's number
It
one.
was in the culture,
We
and
can see in
that's-
Jeremiah
that was the
1:5. We can
culture.
see in Psalm 139 that God actually consecrated people. God actually knitted them together in their mother's womb with intentionality and purpose and love. That's what we read in Psalm 139, that your eyes saw my unformed substance before any of my days came to be. That's what we read in Psalm 139. The other thing is people say that life starts at first breath. First of all, breath is not an indicator of moral worth. There are people that depend on a ventilator to breathe. That's not a justification to murder them.
First breath.
And then the third one is that babies actually do breathe inside the womb. They're not breathing air, they're breathing in amniotic fluid, which is practicing those breathing motions. And so I still am not understanding your logic or the science
So
behind
the-
what you're claiming.
Yeah, so the abortion issue,
Thank you.
Let me just tell you, when you're in a situation like this, like the one that Allie was in, where she's sitting across from a leftist, it is very easy to be condescending. It's very easy to own the libs, if you will, to get an Allie Beth Stuckey stomps on liberal over abortion. Allie did neither of those two things. She was extremely respectful. She was poised, and she completely decimated this man's argument on abortion. It was a beautiful sight to behold. Eugene's music says in the live chat, Allie was so good on that Jubilee. She really was. She also addressed the transgender ideology and gender dysphoria, gender, if you will. I mean, I don't like the word gender, but take a look. No, we can play that. It's okay. All right, a little technical difficulty, hopefully not to the extent that we had at the beginning of the show. Suffice to say, you should go watch the entire episode of Allie Stuckey on Jubilee because she did an admirable job. She was a credit to Christians and conservatives everywhere. And I think a lot of people want to be able to engage in these type of debates, whether it's with their family, with their friends, on their Facebook, in their community. And they often, I get asked this question a lot, like, what do I say in response to these different arguments? And Allie provides an excellent handbook for anybody who wants to very respectfully, with courage and armed with the truth, engage with leftists, even leftists who are claiming to be Christian. So go watch that. Go watch it. I watched the whole thing and it was great. It was great. I really enjoyed it. She did a good job. Okay, guys. Thank you. Oh, do we have this now? Oh, here we go. Okay, no, it's not playing again. You're gonna have to go watch the full episode on YouTube because we are having that technical glitch. All right, guys, if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe. YouTube.com/Liz Wheeler, X.com/Liz_Wheeler on Spotify. We are the Liz Wheeler Show. We have video over there, so if you missed the live stream, because we went live 2 hours later than usual and you didn't have us in your schedule like you normally do, you can catch the video completely uncensored over on Spotify. Please give us a 5-star review if you like the episode too. Greatly appreciate that, and it helps other people find the show. Thank you for watching today. Thank you for listening. I'm Liz Wheeler. This is The Liz Wheeler Show.